Okay, let's unpack this. Think about the animals you see every day. Maybe your dog, who seems to know exactly when you're sad, right?
Yeah, or that bird figuring out the feeder in a clever way.
Exactly. Or maybe you've heard those incredible stories about elephants. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What is really going on inside their heads? Are they just, running on instinct, biological machines?
Or is there something more? A rich inner life we're only just starting to get.
Do they think? Do they feel? Maybe in ways that are, well, comparable to us.
It's a massive question. And, people have wrestled with it for ages.
Right. The sources you brought touch on that history.
Yeah, you see these wild contrasts. Like way back, Descartes saw animals as basically unfeeling automata.
Just machines.
Pretty much. But then you had others, like Pythagoras even earlier, arguing they felt the whole range of emotions.
And Darwin. He was more on the Pythagoras side.
Definitely. He saw that continuity, argued there wasn't really a fundamental difference in mental faculties, especially between us and, say, other mammals.
Okay, so that brings us to today. Because based on this pile of sources, research papers, expert analyses on consciousness, cognition, emotion, it feels like science is really shifting.
Oh, dramatically. Much closer now to that Darwinian or even Pythagorean view, honestly.
So our mission for this deep dive, then,
is to really get into this material, pull out the key insights, see how science is, well, kind of rewriting our understanding of animal minds.
Moving past those old assumptions.
Exactly. Leaving behind those maybe limiting ideas.
So where do we even start charting this revolution in thinking?
Well, I think we have to acknowledge just how big a shift it's been. For a long, long time, talking about animal feelings or smarts, it was often brushed off.
Anthropomorphism, right. Just projecting human stuff onto them.
Right. Dismissed as just sentimentality, but, decades of careful work by biologists in the field.
Plus all those stories from pet owners, people working closely with animals.
Exactly. It built up this case that science eventually couldn't just ignore. But what was really needed was a sort of scientific line in the sand based on the biology.
And that sounds like the Cambridge Declaration on Consciousness in 2012. The sources highlight that one. What was the big deal there?
Oh, it was huge. You really can't overstate it, because this wasn't just like a philosophical debate anymore.
That's with scientists.
Leading neuroscientists, yeah. And they came out and explicitly said, based on the neurological evidence available then, that humans are not unique.
Not unique in having the brain structures for consciousness?
Precisely. They stated that non-human animals, and they included all mammals, all birds, and even others like octopuses, have the necessary brain bits, the architecture, to generate conscious experience.
Wow. That's a total game changer.
It really was.
It's basically saying, okay, forget the animal as machine idea. That's out. The real scientific question now is, which animals are conscious? And maybe even more, how do they experience the world differently?
Exactly. It completely reframed the research. And to get at that how, the sources really stress we need clear definitions. Like, what do we even mean by these terms?
Okay, let's start with the big one, consciousness. That feels slippery.
It's the trickiest, for sure. Often defined as subjective experience, awareness, having that first-person viewpoint, feeling your environment, your internal states.
Like the phrase, something it is like to be that animal.
That's the famous philosophical shorthand, yeah. And the insight now is that researchers are looking at it less like an on-off switch.
And more like a spectrum.
Maybe, or even different kinds of consciousness, trying to map variations, maybe give each species a sort of consciousness profile.
Okay, so consciousness is the subjective feeling, the being there. What about cognition?
Cognition is more about the processing side, the mental gears turning. It's how animals acquire knowledge, process it, act on it.
Learning, memory, problem solving, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. The thinking part, the flexible behavior. And the key thing here, sophisticated cognition can happen sometimes with, maybe sometimes without obvious conscious thought. And it varies hugely. Different animals are good at different things, specialized for how they live.
Got it. And then emotion seems tightly linked to consciousness.
Absolutely. Emotions are those internal states, fear, joy, anger, sadness, tied to physiological changes in how animals act.
So it involves the feeling part, the subjective experience.
Yes, linking back to consciousness.
Yeah.
But also brain activity, hormones, outward behavior. It's the whole package.
And this is where sentience comes in. The sources mention that a lot.
Critical concept. Sentience is basically the capacity to feel. to experience positive or negative states, pleasure, pain, suffering, contentment. The big insight. Sentience is increasingly seen as the core reason why animal well-being matters ethically.
And the science around animal emotion, it's really changed, hasn't it?
Oh, radically. Neuroscience has found these core affective circuits, like Jack Panksepp's work showed. Circuits for things like seeking, fear, rage, even care, grief, play.
And these are found across mammals.
Across all mammals, yeah. It strongly suggests this shared ancient emotional toolkit. So we infer these states from behavior, from physiology.
Like a dog's wagging tail isn't just random.
Right. It correlates with internal states. Or stress hormones in a monkey's blood clearly indicating distress. The point is, that old reluctance to talk about animal emotions, it's just crumbling under the scientific evidence.
Okay, so if I'm getting this, consciousness is the subjective stage. Emotion is a specific kind of feeling on that stage, often tied to survival. Cognition is the mental machinery working behind the scenes. And the Cambridge Declaration basically says lots of animals have this stage.
That's a great way to put it.
So with those terms clear, let's look at the evidence. Is anyone actually home?
Well, based on that declaration and all the neurobiology since, the consensus is definitely shifting towards yes. Consciousness seems to exist across many different groups.
Yeah.
Probably more like a dimmer switch than on-off.
A spectrum. What's the evidence for that basic level, just awareness or sentience?
It starts with just observing behavior, what researchers call perceptual awareness. Most vertebrates, even many invertebrates, clearly act in ways suggesting they perceive and feel things.
Seeking food, avoiding pain. Obvious stuff.
Obvious, but important. And brain structures in mammals, birds, cortex, pallium functions similarly to human areas linked to consciousness. The key insight here, the pragmatic approach is, if their brains react similarly, if they act similarly to painful or pleasant things,
then it makes sense to assume they feel similarly.
it's the most parsimonious scientific view, yeah. It's likely not just a reflex. There's probably something it feels like to be them in that moment.
And we see other hints like REM sleep, dreaming potentially.
Exactly. Mammals, birds show REM sleep. Those studies on rats replaying maze routes in their sleep. That suggests internal processing, maybe even dreaming. Even fish and reptiles show complex learning, avoiding things that hurt them. It all points towards feeling states.
And this is having real-world impact, like legal changes.
Yes, some places, like the UK, now legally recognize cephalopods, octopuses, squid, and decapods, like crabs and lobsters, as sentient, acknowledging their capacity to feel. The debate is shifting from if to what kind of consciousness they have.
Okay, moving up the ladder maybe to higher awareness. The mirror self-recognition test. Classic stuff.
Gordon Gallup's test from 1970. Really clever. You put a mark on an animal where they can only see it in a mirror.
And if they use the mirror to investigate the mark on their own body?
Like touching the spot while looking in the mirror, that's taken as strong evidence for self-awareness, recognizing that's me.
And not many animals make the cut right. The mirror club is small.
It's pretty exclusive. The great apes, chimps, bonobos, orangutans, gorillas are a bit inconsistent, bottlenose dolphins, Asian elephants, and fascinatingly, one bird, the Eurasian magpie.
The elephant example, happy at the Bronx Zoo, that's striking. Touching the mark on her head with her trunk while looking.
Incredible evidence. She even used the mirror to look inside her own mouth. It strongly suggests she understood that reflection was her.
And the sources mention a pattern here. Species that pass often have big brains, complex social lives, empathy.
There seems to be a correlation, yeah. Visual self-recognition might be linked to understanding others, to social complexity. But, and this is important, failing the test doesn't automatically mean no self-awareness.
Right. Maybe just not a visual kind, like a dog relies on smell more.
Exactly. A mirror might just smell like glass, or maybe vaguely like another dog. Doesn't mean they don't know who they are in their own sensory world.
Okay. Besides behavior, what about neuroscientific clues? What's the brain telling us?
Brain activity patterns are key. In us, consciousness involves integrated activity across different regions of cortex, thalamus. Similar patterns are seen in animals during comparable states.
And the REM sleep evidence again, brain activity looking like wakefulness.
And neuroanatomy itself. Big brains often correlate. Sure, primates, elephants, cetaceans. But it's not just size.
It's how it's organized, like birds.
Right. Birds have smaller brains overall, but the neuron density in their pallium, their outer layer, is incredibly high, comparable to primates in key areas. That helps explain their surprising smarts.
And octopuses. Completely different setup, decentralized nervous system, but clearly capable of complex stuff.
Another great example. Defies simple comparisons. But the evidence for complex cognition and likely consciousness based on recent findings and the declaration is strong.
So the insight is different paths, different structures, but similar outcomes, possible complex processing, likely subjective experience.
Yeah, the field is constantly developing new tests, applying evolutionary thinking. That old idea. Only humans are conscious. It's just not holding up.
The focus now is more on the differences, the unique ways animals experience the world.
Exactly. What is it like to be a bat using sonar? Or an elephant navigating by decades of memory? Trying to understand that consciousness profile for each species. And recognizing this basic sentience, maybe higher self-awareness. It matters. It means respecting their capacity to feel.
It totally reframes our relationship. Okay, so they might be conscious, maybe self-aware. Let's get into the processing power, their cognitive abilities. The sources are packed with jaw-dropping examples.
They really are. Animals constantly blow researchers away with their problem-solving, learning, flexibility. And the key insight is intelligence isn't just one thing, right?
Not a single ladder with us at the top.
No, there's social smarts, memory, technical skills. Animals are specialized for their niche. Comparing them directly to us is tricky. Often it's a difference in degree or focus, not a total lack.
Let's start with our closest cousins, primates. They're kind of the poster children for animal intelligence.
Absolutely. And for good reason, especially the great apes. Take tool use and causal reasoning. Wild chimps don't just use tools, they have toolkits. Specific techniques for termite fishing or nut cracking. And these techniques vary between groups. That's culture, which we'll get to.
And in labs. Orangutans bending wire into hooks.
Spontaneously. Which, interestingly, New Caledonian crows also do. Gorillas using branches as walking sticks.
And that chimp collecting stones to throw later, that feels like planning.
Clear foresight, premeditation. They also seem to grasp basic physics, spitting water to raise a peanut, stacking boxes, cause and effect.
Their memory and learning is legendary too.
Exceptional memories. Remember Ayumu, the young chimp who smoked humans on that number memory game? Maybe a kind of photographic memory we lose.
And social memory, remembering individuals for years.
Yes, and learning complex skills just by watching others. Crucial for survival.
And communication. It feels like apes get closest to our kind of complexity.
They don't have our grammar. But experiments teaching sign language, Coco, Washoe, or symbols like lexicograms, they showed apes can grasp symbolic representation, use symbols meaningfully.
Kanzi the bonobo, understanding spoken sentences. And syntax even.
Yeah, understanding put the soap in the water versus put the water in the soap via those keyboard symbols. That suggests a deeper processing.
And in the wild, those vervet monkey alarm calls different sounds for different predators. That's functionally symbolic.
A basic form of reference, exactly. And then there's social cognition, navigating those complex groups.
The Machiavellian intelligence idea, strategic alliances, deception, hiding a grin.
Precisely. And studies on theory of mind, understanding what others know or see. Subordinate chimps going for food the dominant one didn't see suggests they get the dominant's perspective, or lack thereof. Following gaze, pointing, understanding attention.
And the consolation behavior again, hugging, patting. That's basic empathy, right? Recognizing distress.
It certainly looks like it. And it's not just apes. Monkeys show sophisticated stuff too, maybe less complex. Capuchins using tools, that famous fairness study.
Rejecting the cucumber if the other guy gets a grape.
Exactly. Shows a sense of equity. The point is, the roots of our own intelligence run deep in our primate relatives.
Okay, let's swap environments. From the trees to the ocean. Cetaceans, dolphins, whales. Huge brains.
Often second only to humans in relative brain size. And they share those special spindle neurons found in us. Apes, elephants linked to social emotions, complex decisions.
And dolphins passed the mirror test right after apes.
They did. Checked out marks on their bodies using the mirror. Fits with their incredibly complex social lives. Recognizing individuals, having signature whistles like names, remembering friends for years, suggests a strong sense of identity.
Your communication. We don't fully get it, but it's clearly complex.
Humpback whale songs are the obvious example. So long, elaborate, changing, spreading culturally across oceans. Dolphin clicks and whistles too. We can't crack their natural language yet, but lab studies.
Like Louis Herman's work, showing they understand syntax in artificial languages.
Exactly. Understanding that the order of symbols changes the meaning. That, plus their coordinated hunting, helping injured pod mates, requires sophisticated communication and teamwork.
And they seem genuinely smart in a playful, problem-solving way, too.
Oh, hugely curious, inventive, dolphins learning tricks, even inventing new ones and teaching them. Play seems really important. Cooperative puzzles.
And the big whales. Orcas beaching themselves to hunt seals, humpbacks inventing new feeding methods.
And those techniques spread. That's social learning and culture. Super well documented in cetaceans. Whale songs, orca hunting tactics taught mother to calf, dolphin sponging tool use passed down.
Even fads like that tail-walking thing in one dolphin group.
Yeah. This cultural aspect is so important, it's now factoring into conservation. Losing key whales or dolphins can mean losing vital group knowledge. UNESCO is even considering whale cultures as heritage worth protecting. The insight. Their intelligence is different, adapted for an aquatic, social, sound-based world. Convergent evolution towards high intelligence.
Fascinating. Okay, back on land. The biggest. Elephants. Their memory, their emotions. Almost mythical.
And the science confirms a lot of it. That elephant never forgets, saying. Pretty accurate for memory and spatial knowledge. Matriarchs hold decades of knowledge, water sources, routes, danger signals. They remember individuals, elephants, and humans years later. Huge hippocampus helps.
And they show self-awareness and cognition beyond memory, too?
Brass the mirror test, definitely. And studies show sophisticated body awareness, understanding they need to step off a mat to pick up an attached stick. That's like a 2-year-old human child's level of insight.
Simple tools, too, like fly swats.
Branches for flies or plugging water holes. Using boxes to reach food, but where they really shine is cooperative intelligence.
The rope-pulling tasks.
Yeah, learning they have to pull together. Even waiting for a partner who's slower. Shows understanding of teamwork. They'd even cheat if they could pull alone, showing flexibility.
But it's their emotional intelligence and empathy that's often most striking.
The evidence is just overwhelming. Grief and mourning. Lingering by bodies, touching bones, staying with the dying. That story of herds visiting Lawrence Anthony's house after he died.
And the consolation study, actively comforting distressed individuals.
Yes, documented scientifically. Gentle trunk touches, soft churs. Targeted helping too, rescuing stuck calves, lifting injured companions. It points to deep sympathetic concern.
Their whole social complexity and culture seems built on these bonds.
Tight matriarchal families, group-specific calls and behaviors, knowledge passed down culturally, how to find water, how to deal with humans, long friendships, alliances, those amazing greeting ceremonies.
So the insight is broad, deep intelligence, memory, self-awareness, incredible social and emotional depth. Sagacious fits. Their feelings clearly drive their complex lives.
Now, let's shift scale. From giants to some arguably equally brilliant minds. Birds. Corvids and parrots, especially.
The feathered Einsteins, even though their brains look totally different from ours.
Exactly. No neocortex like mammals. But their pallium is densely packed with neurons. The insight is you don't need our brain structure to be smart. Connectivity and density matter hugely.
And their tool use and causal understanding is just wild.
New Caledonian crows are the rock stars here, making hook tools from scratch. Betty the crow bending wire. Solving multi-step puzzles. Rooks dropping stones in water to raise the level. They get cause and effect. Planning.
And memory and planning. Those caching birds are unbelievable.
Jays. Nutcrackers, remembering thousands of cache locations for months. And scrub jays planning for future hunger. Storing the right food in the right place depending on anticipated needs later. That's mental time travel.
And they get paranoid if watched while caching, rehiding stuff.
Suggests they're thinking about what the watcher might know or intend. A kind of perspective taking. Then you have parrots, like Alex the African Gray, with vocal learning and communication.
Not just mimicking, right? Labeling objects, colors, shapes, counting, understanding, none.
Yes, using sounds meaningfully, grasping abstract concepts, that's complex cognition. Songbirds learning dialects culturally. Crows in cities recognizing specific human faces, teaching others who's dangerous.
And they play. Ravens sliding down snowy roofs.
Seems like pure fun. And play correlates with intelligence. They collaborate too. And we see cultural spread, blue tits opening milk bottles, cockatoos opening bins, techniques spreading socially.
That's a big takeaway for birds.
Tool use, planning, communication, social learning. On par with great apes in many ways. Different brain, same sophisticated results. High intelligence evolved multiple times.
Okay, what about the animals we live closest with? Dogs, other domestic animals. We see them being smart and emotional all the time.
Domestication really shaped their minds, especially their knack for understanding us. Cognitively, dogs often perform like young kids on certain social tasks.
Like Chaser the border collie, learning over 1,000 object names. Or Rico, fast-mapping new words.
Incredible vocabulary learning. And they're uniquely good at reading human cues, following points, gaze better even than chimps sometimes in those specific contexts. The insight. Dogs evolved a specialized intelligence for interacting with humans.
Though the sources note a potential trade-off, maybe less independent problem-solving sometimes.
Possibly. Looking to humans for help might have been selected for during domestication. It's fascinating. And their emotions and empathy. Well, anyone with a dog knows. Strong bonds, separation anxiety.
Studies show they react to human crying, try to comfort people.
Yeah, even strangers sometimes. Suggest recognition of distress and motivation to help. MRI scans show reward centers lighting up for praise or owner scent, like ours. And that jealousy study is interesting.
When the owner pets a stuffed dog, though maybe the guilty look is just reading our cues.
That's debated, yeah. Shows their sensitivity to us. But it's not just dogs. Cats know their owner's voice, form bonds. Horses read our expressions, use symbols.
And pigs. Super smart, often underestimated. Mazes, video games, even showing empathy for stressed companions. Rodents, too, like rats.
The rat helping studies are amazing, freeing trapped cage mates, even prioritizing helping over treats. Shows empathy isn't just a primate or dog thing.
So the insight is that complexity and feeling exist across a wide range of animals, including ones we maybe don't think about that way.
Exactly, and recognizing that capacity is driving changes in welfare standards, ethical thinking.
Which leads us right into digging deeper into that feeling world. Beyond basic fear or happiness, what about empathy, grief, fairness?
The evidence is really piling up. Empathy and consolation. We see it at different levels.
Mm-hmm.
Simple emotional contagion, catching another's stress, sympathetic concern, wanting to help, maybe even perspective taking.
We saw examples with elephants, chimps.
Right, and that rat helping experiment is just so compelling.
Freeing the trapped buddy, even choosing that over chocolate.
It strongly points to an empathetic drive, powerful enough to override self-interest, at least sometimes. And they helped familiar rats. More sounds like patterns in human empathy, too.
That feels like altruism, helping even if it costs you something.
Yeah, foregoing a treat is a cost. Dolphins helping injured pod mates, elephants rescuing calves, primates doing lower cost, helping like passing objects, bonobos sharing with strangers. The insight. Pro-social behavior runs deep in social species, likely fueled by empathy.
And that sense of fairness, reacting badly to getting ripped off.
The capuchin study is the classic, throwing the cucumber back. Chimps show similar aversion to unequal deals. Dogs might stop cooperating if their partner gets treats for nothing.
Like building blocks for morality, maybe evolve to keep cooperation stable.
That's a key idea, yeah. Maintaining fairness helps groups stick together. Now, grief and mourning, the behaviors are just profound.
Elephants by bones, apes carrying dead infants like Flo, dolphins nudging dead calves.
It's hard to explain those away as just instinct. The actions are so consistent with feeling deep loss, sorrow. We can't know their subjective feeling, but the behavior is powerful.
And hints of even more complex feelings. Jealousy, maybe shame.
Emerging research suggests things like jealousy in dogs, chimps. Appeasement behaviors could relate to shame or embarrassment. Pride is speculative, maybe a chimp's triumphant call. Resentment seems plausible, chimps remembering who shared food and retaliating later.
And basic love and attachment?
Absolute fundamental mother-infant bonds. Pair bonds, like in prairie voles driven by oxytocin, same as in humans. Even fish show stress, pleasure, pain avoidance linked to similar neurochemistry. The big picture, animal emotions mirror ours in fundamental ways, even if less elaborate cognitively. Their capacity to suffer or flourish is real, driving ethical shifts. Their social lives have meaning.
Which connects to another social dimension, animal culture and social learning. Is culture just a human thing?
The sources argue strongly. No. Human culture is way more complex, sure. But the building blocks, knowledge, habits, skills, learn from others, leading to group traditions. Animals definitely do that.
Social learning leading to tradition?
That's the core. And the first non-human culture documented was in primates?
Right. Chimps. Goodall's work.
Exactly. Different groups have different tool techniques, termite fishing styles, nut-cracking methods, different social rituals like grooming hand clasps, play styles. Then there's the Japanese macaques watching potatoes.
Emo, the young female who started it, and it spread through the troop.
Became a whoop norm. Classic cultural transmission. And capuchins with that weird eyeball-poking fad seems totally arbitrary like human trends. Shows how strong social learning is, especially for the young.
Cetaceans are strong on culture, too.
Oh, yeah. Humpback songs spreading across oceans like pop hits, orca dialects, hunting strategies specific to pods, taught mother to calf.
Like the beaching technique, or working with fishermen historically.
Exactly. Dolphin sponging tool use passed down. That tail-walking fad. The insight. Culture is a major force shaping behavior in these animals. Losing key individuals means losing irreplaceable learned knowledge. That's why conservationists and even UNESCO are paying attention.
And birds, beyond song dialects.
Foraging tricks spread culturally. Blue tits in milk bottles, crows using cars for nuts. Those Australian cockatoos learning to open bins, researchers mapped the spread like a cultural wave. Hens teach chicks what's good to eat.
Even hints in other animals. Fish migration routes, insect tool use.
Fish traditions for routes, mating sites, bumblebees learning string pulling from each other. The insight is clear. Culture, as socially learned in traditions, isn't uniquely human. It's well established in primates, cetaceans, birds, likely elsewhere too. Human culture is massively more complex and cumulative. Language is key there, but it's a difference of degree, not a total break. And recognizing animal culture matters for conservation and ethically too.
Okay, let's tie this all together. A shared heritage, comparing animal and human minds. What's the final picture?
The big message from all this research is really about evolutionary continuity. It's a bridge, not some huge chasm between us and other animal minds.
We see precursors, analogs of our own mental lives everywhere.
Emotions, personality, learning, communication, tools, even morality hints. Culture. We're part of that spectrum, not standing completely apart.
Especially those core emotions and motivations. Shared brain systems, shared chemistry.
Oxytocin, dopamine. Animals feel things that are qualitatively similar: fear, joy, grief, curiosity. The differences might be in complexity. Our emotions get tangled up with abstract thought, language, future planning. We regulate more. But that basic capacity to feel good or bad, suffer or be happy, that seems profoundly shared. And that's a bedrock of ethical concern.
But when we look at intellect, cognitive specializations, humans do stand out in some areas.
Definitely. Sophisticated language with grammar, infinite possibilities that's uniquely human, abstract reasoning, maths, thinking about thinking, metacognition. We take those much further. Our big neocortex, especially the prefrontal parts, supports complex planning, impulse control.
And that combo language plus cumulative culture allows that rapid global knowledge explosion.
Absolutely. That's the huge difference in scale. But animals have their own stunning cognitive peaks, right? Bird memory, crow problem solving, dog social reading, primate complexity. Smartest depends entirely on the task, the insight. High intelligence evolved multiple ways using different brain tools. Size isn't everything.
What about self-awareness and theory of mind? Mirror test passed by some.
But our self-concept is narrative, extends through time. Apes seem to grasp what others see or intend. Full-blown theory of mind, like ours, it's less clear. Empathy, too, we can extend it very broadly, even to fiction. Animal empathy is often more focused on their group, though not always. And we build ethical systems around empathy. And looking again at brain structure, the point is reinforced. Organization, density, wiring matters much or more than just size. Birds, octopuses, amazing cognition, different blueprints. Evolution finds ways.
While we had our own unique trajectory, boosted by culture feeding back into brain evolution.
Right. But the fundamental takeaway is that continuity. Our minds didn't spring from nowhere. They have deep evolutionary roots shared across the animal kingdom. Understanding them gives us perspective on ourselves. It fosters kinship. Darwin was right. We are not separate.
So wrapping up this deep dive, the overwhelming picture from the science is clear. That old dividing line, it's blurred, maybe erased. It really is a bridge.
We share fundamental capacities for consciousness, emotion, complex thought, far more than we used to believe.
Yeah, moving from seeing animals as just instinct-driven machines to recognizing them as fellow conscious beings.
Yeah.
It's a huge shift.
One of the most profound scientific reevaluations, really.
And those examples stick with you, don't they? A crow making a hook tool, a dolphin recognizing itself, elephants grieving or consoling, a rat helping its buddy.
These aren't just anecdotes anymore. They're backed by solid research. They show complex minds at work, experiencing their own worlds.
It really forces us to reconsider that us versus them mentality.
It was based on what we didn't know, not on reality. We share this planet with other sentient minds.
And exploring their minds, it absolutely enriches our understanding of life, of ourselves, our connection to everything. It demands a deeper respect.
The science confirms that deep connection Darwin saw. We are fundamentally related.
So here's the final thought to leave you with, based on everything we've unpacked today. Given this incredible richness we're discovering in animal minds, their awareness, their feelings, their intelligence, their cultures, how should this change how we actually interact with animals,
In every way, right? From our pets at home.
to how we manage wildlife, how we approach farming, research. What does it really mean practically and ethically to realize we share this planet not just with biological life, but with other conscious feeling beings?